My name is Alan, and welcome to the Sound Support Podcast, Episode 2. Now, if you're wondering why I'm wearing glasses, it's very simple. I normally wear extended wear contacts, which you can keep in your eyes for about a month. And normally I wear them closer to 2 or 3, sometimes longer, whether you're supposed to or not. Now, technically, you should take them out of your eyes every night, clean them, put them back in, that kind of thing. But if you need to wear them extended times, you can, which is one of the things that you can do with extended wears. They say if you sleep in them, it's not good, but your eye's not going to get infected or anything. It's supposed to do better than the 2-week disposables you're supposed to take out every day. Not as good as the daily wears, which you're supposed to throw out after 15 hours, but those never work for me. Well, I shouldn't say never. They work for me for about a day on set, but then you have to throw them out, and they're not going to be part of my regular workflow as a general rule. But these contacts that I had in my eyes started bothering me about a month ago, and I couldn't figure out why. I took them out of my eyes, let my eye, rest a little bit, because it was just this eye that was driving me crazy. I let it kind of heal, and then I put the contacts back in, and after a day or two, they started bothering me again. Well, that's when I realized they'd been in my eye for close to 4 months. So I am throwing those out, giving my eyes a few days break before I put the contacts back in. That would be the reasoning why. It is Saturday, August 22nd, 2020. Let's get into it. I have 3 announcements for you this week. The first is that I'm reopening the cable making factory. That's right. If you missed the opportunity for me to make you XLR cables my way to my specifications, and I've been making cables for years and years and years at this point, and I've been making them in a very refined way, and I constantly change up and make my procedure better. I've dialed in on the way that I like it, though, and I haven't changed it in probably a good maybe 3 or 4 years now, because maybe even longer than that. Yeah, probably longer than that. And I've been very happy with the cable. I've never had one fail. And so I decided that I was going to offer that as a courtesy to anybody that was interested in getting an XLR cable made by yours truly in the way that I've kind of dialed in on over the years as the way I like cables made. I'm not going to go into how that is. I've gone over it in other live streams. I've made them in live streams. Unfortunately, unless you're one of my Patreons at a $10 level or higher, you're not going to see those. But I have done them. I've talked about them quite extensively. And I'm going to be offering those XLR cables, a 10-footer, but I will make other links if you'd like them, or other custom orders if you'd like a right angle connector or something along those lines. If you are interested, $50 for a 10-foot XLR. Now, if you say, that's kind of expensive, well, if you get an Amazon Basics, it probably will be. But these cables are very, very well made. You can run them straight over power strips. If you watch my video on my studio upgrade part 2, you'll see a whole coil of cables laying over a power strip with all kinds of things underneath it. And that's just because I didn't think about it for probably a year or two, because it never ran into an issue. My cables don't buzz. They don't have issues like that, and they can withstand quite a bit. So if you're interested in getting an XLR cable you're not going to have to worry about, then consider getting one of my $50 10-foot XLRs, or ask me for a custom order. Regardless, you can send me an email at alan@soundspeeds.us, and I will gladly tell you how to make payment. Now, if you are interested in being a sound utility or learning what it takes to be a sound utility in the big budget shows, TV shows, I'm going to be doing a 3-hour-long class with a question and answer session afterwards on September 12th from 2 until 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, that is going to be a paid class. It will never be public on the website, but if you do pay for that class, it's going to be $50. And you will have access to the class forever. I'm not going to, hide it from you or something like that. You're going to have access to it forever. Now, if you buy a ticket to be part of that class for the first week up until, what would that be? The end of the month. Let's just say until the end of the month. Until the end of the month of August, if you want to buy a ticket, I'll discount it $10. So if you want to be part of that class, learn what it takes to be a sound utility in the real world. Now, if you've been to my classes in the real world, and the classes I've taught, those have been closer to 4 or 5 hours, sometimes even longer than that. The reason why is because we usually do hands-on stuff. We talk about things in person. This is going to be scaled down quite a bit from that. So if you're familiar with my classes that I do in the real world, obviously there's hands-on stuff. We're not going to be part of that. But what this class is going to go over is the processes, the procedures, what it is to be a sound utility. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go into 5,000 different ways of wiring and all the different breakdowns of everything, but you will leave the class understanding what it is you're supposed to do. I'm not going to be going through paperwork and on how to do every single one of those things. You will at least come out of the class understanding that there is something you need to do regarding that particular thing. So I'll discuss time code, but I'm not going to go over every single time code box there is in existence because every sound mixer you work for example, is going to have different equipment. And I can't go over all that in a 3-hour-long lecture. But what I can do is tell you what you need to be aware of. So that way, if you want to do additional research, you can. If you have never taken a sound utility class and you're interested in being a sound utility in the motion picture industry, then you might consider joining this one because I've taught this class for years and years now. And the material I'm going to be presenting is quite refined. There's a lot of information in it, so it will be information overload, just to make you aware. But it is something that if you've never been part of, you're going to want to if you're interested in being a sound utility. Now, if you're a novice person and just kind of interested in sound in general, this is probably not going to be the class for you because it's going to not necessarily be technical, but there's going to be a lot of skills that we're talking about in that. So if you're curious as to seeing what a film sound utility does, you might consider enrolling. If you're curious, and if you're interested in being a sound utility, this is probably a must-attend type of thing if you have any interest in that. And keep in mind that through the end of the month of August, you will get $10 off on that. On the $50 class, it will be for $40. But after that, as soon as we roll over into September, we're going to hike it back up. So that is the second announcement. The third one is I'm going to be doing a charity live stream. Now, it's going to be one that is testing the EINs or preamp cleanliness, I should say, of 4 different devices. 2 of them are analog and 2 of them are digital. Now you may say, how are you going to be testing it if it's digital? Well, I'll be going over that in the video. I'm not going to do a video about it ahead of time. This is once again a video that, because it's a charity live stream, it will not be anywhere online except available to my Patreon viewers. But that will not be something that my sound utility class will not be available to Patreons. But this will be something that will be included in my live stream archive, which the Patreons have access to. But this is going to be an EIN testing thing where half of the money that I raise is going to go towards charity. At least half, I should say. I have not determined the exact amount yet. I'm going to see how well it goes. If I only get $100 in donations, I may end up throwing the whole thing straight to charity. If I get, let's just say I somehow end up with 10,000. Obviously, I'm not going to pocket, 5,000 of that. I would donate more to charity. We're going to have to just kind of determine it based on the amount that we make in that. But it's going to be donations only, live stream for charity. And I'm saying it is for charity because we're donating half of it. The other half I will keep because this is not going to be an easy video for me to do it all. I've thought about it. I know a good way to do it. I'm going to be doing this kind of the way that we did the live stream that we did where we made cables. It's going to kind of be in that format. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to do it anyway. Now, what 4 devices do I have planned on testing? The EIN of the Rodecaster Pro, the EIN of the HDTX by Deity, and we're going to be doing 2 analog devices, the DBX286S and the sound devices MM1. So if you're ever curious as to how clean the preamps are on those devices, we're going to get you an exact number on that. And I'm going to be announcing probably in the next couple of days when that live stream is going to be, and it would be available to anyone that's willing to make a donation. And that is, of course, not going to be a defined amount. It doesn't have to be over 5 or 10 or 100 or whatever else. It's just going to be make a donation. You can. So if you really want to donate a dollar, you can, but keep in mind it is going to charity. So those are my announcements for this week. Let's move into our next section. Halter Technical has a new line of headphones. These are called the Elite monitors. If you're not familiar with Halter Technical, then that probably means you're not in the film industry. Halter Technical makes products that are used by us in the film industry. They have the Field monitor, single ear. They have the Scene monitor, which is a double ear, and now they have the Elite monitor. These are better made, higher quality headphones than the other monitors that they have, the Scene monitors and the Field monitors. Now, One of the things that I think is really cool about these is that it is taking a step up. These are designed for people like producers, the UPM when they come to set, the director, script supervisor, people that may need to listen to a little bit more fidelity than just PAs listening on set or something of the like. Now, let's go over this because this has not really been out very long, but I wanted to go over some of the features. I tested it for probably a good hour or so earlier today, and I have some opinions formed. Now, granted, this is not my opinion after using them in the field. This is me going over them, testing them for a good solid hour, wearing them for almost the entire hour, and then getting an idea of them going, through over that test. The scene monitor box, first of all, which you notice they're not in there, is because they're already out, is very Spartan. There's not a whole lot to it. I like the color scheme, which kind of seems to be a Halter technical type thing. And one of the things that I appreciated also is the fact that it doesn't go into a whole lot of word stuff that you have to read. A lot of consumer and prosumer products load you down with words, making it seem like it's going to be more impressive. But really, all you need to know about these is the impedance is 32 ohms, so it will power off of any device. It is at 20 to 20,000 hertz. They have 40 millimeter drivers. The sensitivity is pretty standard at about 117 plus or minus 3 dB. It has a 3-inch cable or 3-foot long cable, which is about a meter. And then it has a 3.5 millimeter connector, which goes along with any ComTech or any such system that you would use in the film industry. Here's what they look like. Now, I have some notes here I'm going to be referring back to on my computer here, but I wanted to go over what my initial thoughts are of these. Let's talk about the build quality first of all. When you look at them, first thing you'll notice is that they do indeed fold down so you can keep this in some sort of a little pocket. Like if, for example, you were to grab it, do this number, which I know you shouldn't probably normally do with headphone cables because they're longer, but this only goes around a couple of times. So if you had one of those like shoe things, what is it that you use for organizing shoes you put on the back of your door, for example, you could very easily fold this up and throw one of these in one of those little shoe sleeves that you keep on the back of your cart if you have the desire to do something like that. They're very small and can do something very similar to that. Next thing I noticed is that the ears slightly angle. So if your ears are not parallel, if they slightly angle, you could easily make these things fit comfortably along your ear because they do go in and out just a little bit. Not a whole lot. They don't need to flip all the way around. Like these headphones, for example, you can switch all the way around. Well, whose ears are going to be like that? No one's. But got to keep in mind, most of the time, these are going to be either thrown on the back of a chair. They're going to be around someone's neck like this in the film industry, and they're not needing to go flat like these just did. So that is perfectly fine. And the amount that it adjusts in your ears allows you to get a comfortable fit. That's after me wearing them for a while. Now, another thing I think is really interesting is that this cable here is not just a regular cable. It's actually braided, which you can't really see, but if you scratch at it, you'll feel that it's actually a braided cable. And this is for if you were to adjust the headphones this way. And if you do, notice it doesn't stick out very far either. And because it's braided, it's extra resilient to any kind of damage. It's not really enough for you to get a finger into it, because if you try, it's going to be too small and it's not going to really catch your finger very well, which I like that feature as well. Now, the one concern that I think I've mentioned in the past regarding leatherette type headphones, and this is leatherette right here, and it's also on the inside band at the top. Now, it's for comfort. It's laying over top of some sort of like protective sponge material, which is pretty common in a lot of headphones. But the thing that I'm concerned about with leatherette, and I have not tested this, is that if it's very, very hot, like 100-degree weather, like we have here in the South, what happens is people sweat. And if someone has a sweaty forehead or something like that, I'm wondering if it's going to cause this leatherette to kind of peel off and leave little black specks along their head. I have in the past when I don't wear, softies or something like this over my headphones, then I do run into issues with the leatherette creating particles on my ear because it flakes off a little bit on your ears. And it's mainly because you put this on your head when it's sweaty and it kind of, holds into your head. And and it's not ideal in my opinion, but it is over ear. So I'm wondering if that allows it to vent out a little bit, and perhaps it's better. I don't know. Again, I haven't used these in the field yet, but it's something I'm interested in testing. Now, you can get headphone softies and put them over that. It is not the standard size that you would run into on a 7506s, but I believe I remember hearing Doc Justice, who is the main mastermind behind Halter Technical, invited me to kind of a small, candid first look at these, and I believe he answered a question that said the smaller version of headphone softies, sorry, I can't speak, would fit on these. So let's hope that that's accurate, because I have not tested that either. What I do know is that these would probably not fit on there because they would be too big, if you notice that. But who knows? Maybe something like that would. I do not know. Now, another thing that's interesting is when you're wearing them, like these kind of headphones, pretty much any kind of headphone is going to transfer noise through there, but who in the world is going to be rubbing their headphone band while they're talking? But because it's made of plastic, it does transmit more noise. So if you're the kind of person that sits there and does this kind of thing constantly, you will be listening to it slightly louder than you would normal headphones, as if that's an issue. One thing that is a little bit concerning to me is that I've tested this connector in a couple of components now, my phone being one of them, the MixPre 6 on another one, and I also tried it in the Deity HD TX. And every single time when I rotated the connector, I heard it popping a little bit. Crink, how it kind of makes a little connector noise when it cuts in and out. I don't know if that is just because of my technique on that, but if I twist these headphones, for example, the connector there, it doesn't make that noise. It just seemed to happen with this. Now, I was able to very easily plug it in and get a good level, but when I twisted it, I heard it popping in and out. So that's at least something I'm going to mention to you guys. As for the cable length, it seems very good. I plugged this into my phone, I held it at my belt, and then I walked around a little bit because that's where it would sit on a ComTech if it was on your side. And it did not bother me. It did not hang on anything. The cable is not overly stiff, so it hangs well to your body. You can imagine that some cables will kick out and make this weird type, bow out from your body. These don't. They fall relatively, slim to the body, which is very nice. It's not going to likely catch on anything. So that's at least a little bit about the build quality. Now, you might be wondering about the ear pressure. There's not much pressure there. And because they're over-ear headphones, I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing for you. Some people would like headphones that grab their ears a little bit more. But then another thing about open-ear headphones, not open-ear headphones, but on-ear headphones, if you notice they are closed back. But because they are on your ears and don't go around them, you have the drivers a little bit farther away from your ears. And when I put them on my ear, I had this microphone about a foot away from me. I put them on my ear at a normal volume, and I had some people talking through Discord, and I came to find out that they bleed through quite a bit. I was able to hear the conversation very well. Now, if you keep up your headphones really loud, this could be an issue. I don't know. Again, I have not used them on set, but I have run into directors that like to hang out right next to me on set, and I don't want this to bleed back. Now, I don't think it would be loud enough to bleed back. If it is, somebody will obviously lower them. I don't know if it's going to be any worse than a regular pair of headphones, but it is something to be aware of there, that because the driver is recessed and this is on ear, is that going to be a problem? I don't know. But it is something to be aware of if you start to hear a lot of headphones that are completely open. Now, I'm sure that if you've been in the film industry, you know that people will leave these on their chairs hanging there, and they'll be on. And eventually, if someone is deaf or going deaf, then they have their volume up kind of loud. And at that point, you end up hearing them quite a bit. And perhaps in that circumstance, these would also do the same thing. The drivers don't seem overly loud, like you don't have to have them up too loud in order to hear something out of them. They seem like normal headphones regarding volume. So I don't expect there to be any issues. Now, one thing I will notice, and I don't normally run into this problem, is that when I don't wear glasses, they fit on top of your ear and I don't even notice them. But because I'm wearing glasses right now, I put them on, and the way that the on-ear headphones sit, they press back against the what is this part of the glasses called? The arm or something like that? It was pressing my ear into, and here I am turning away from the microphone. It was pressing my ear into the bar, the arm of the glasses. And I did notice it for a few minutes. It was probably about 4 minutes is when I finally looked at it and said, I've had these things on for 4 minutes and now I no longer notice it. I don't know if that's just because I was actively thinking about them and, how comfortable are these? And I was like, wow, I feel the bar there. But after about 4 minutes, I no longer noticed them. So what I'm going to do at the end of this is I'm going to trade these ATH M50X headphones out. I'm going to be wearing the Halter Technicals for the rest of the episode. But I will tell you this regarding sound quality. They are not like the scene monitors. The scene monitors are kind of, more focused towards the mid frequencies of a human voice. These things actually pick up a full frequency range. Now, how do I know that? I pulled out a frequency response, one of those sweep curves, one of those sweeping videos that you can watch on YouTube that starts at 20 hertz and goes up to 20,000 hertz, which is completely ridiculous because YouTube rolls off anything above 16,000. And I listened to it. At 20 hertz, I was hearing these. As soon as the thing started and it said 20 hertz on the screen, you were hearing these, which I thought was awesome. Because on a lot of headphones, if you turn them up and you put it on 20 hertz, it doesn't always start until around 23 to 24, 25, something like that. These I heard from the very beginning. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's a good thing. And of course, I did have to lower my volume as the frequency raised up higher and higher, simply because my ears are naturally A-weighted. That's a joke. Ears are designed to be A-weighted because the frequency, curve that you would add a A-weighting curve to something, it is designed to emulate the sound pickup of a human ear. So naturally, your ears are A-weighted. That was a joke. I hope you laughed. But these headphones, when I did not apply any kind of a gray noise EQ curve to compensate for it. I wanted to actually manually turn it up by hand, and sure as the world, I turned it down as it got up to the normal frequencies we're used to listening to. And as it started to get into the higher frequencies, I did adjust the volume back up. And it seemed to be just fine. It picked up the full frequency range all the way from 20 hertz all the way up to about 15,500 hertz, which is about where YouTube rolls it off too much. So I'm sure it would go up even higher. And I have no doubt that if my daughter's downstairs who can hear really high frequencies because they're young, if I were to give these to them and put them on their heads, they're going to hear those. But then you're adults, aren't you? So you're probably not going to care if you can hear all the way up to 18 or 20,000 hertz. And if so, you might want to test those yourself because I'm not going to be your expert on that. Now, here's what I will say about the quality of them. I've been trying to look for the right words for it because the detail is not as high as you would run into on this. The fatness that you get out of professional monitors is not here. Is it cheap garbage? No, it's not. I would say that it's not as detailed as you would run into, nor is it embellished. A lot of the times headphones embellish and they do boost the bass a little bit. They might boost the highs a little bit. This is just flat. It's even. It's designed, I guess, to be completely flat. So that way it doesn't embellish anything. That way it is what it is. But that is something that a lot of people are not used to. I myself had to think about it for a while. It was not something I was completely, used to. So it does sound very flat to me. Not necessarily bad, but not as detailed as something like this. How does it compare to other headphones that are of the same like and quality? I don't know. The last time I listened to headphones like this was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And that would be if I was listening to it longer than just to say, what's wrong with this? Oh, you just didn't have the volume up, and then I hand it back to the director, something along those lines. Quality listening to it and comparing it to other headphones, I have not done. So you might consider doing that. And I believe that Halter Technical is going to be releasing some chart or something that has a little bit more about that in the future. But as for these right here, I will tell you that they're $25 available at sound specialty shops like those that we would run into here in the film industry. They're not going to be available on Amazon or anything unless it's an audio specialty shop. And you can also get them on the Halter Technical website, haltertechnical.com. It will tell you where they're sold. As for, anything else really to note about them, I will say stress test wise, I'm going to do a little bit, but not now. I'm going to do it at the end of this video. That way you at least get an idea. I get an idea of wearing them for the rest of the episode and seeing how they feel. The one thing I will notice is I don't know if you can hear this or not, but if I grab the cable and I pull it in and out, it is actually internally strain relief. I did ask about that, saying, is it going to yank out? And I was told it's strain relief that's built into that to make them more resilient to things like directors. This little outer tube right there makes a different sound versus, I'll do it this way, versus, and I don't know if that really, conveys very well, but it's also strain relieved. So supposedly these are supposed to withstand the rigors of production and being abused by directors. I am going to stress test them at the end. I'm not going to be, probably doing a whole lot of torque like this on there, but I am going to be doing a couple of tests that directors and such would definitely do on them. So stay tuned to the end of this video and you will see more. But in the meantime, question number 1, Gerg asks, if I recorded a file at 44.1K and rendered it at 48K in WAV format, would that cause artifacts in the rendered audio file? If you use something like Reaper or Adobe Audition, something that's an actual DAW, it shouldn't. If you watch my video on 32-bit floating point, I kind of explained the quantization that happens in digital audio. Now, it should understand, if it's a good quality program like a digital audio workstation, it should understand that when you resample something or render out at a different sample rate, then it should technically be able to convert one thing into another. And it should do that without any additional really quantization errors that would be audible or that you would hear as artifacts. Now, the reason why that is because it's basically quantizing originally analog files. And if you watch that 32-bit floating point video, then you know that when it quantizes it, there's only really one way that the audio can be quantized and still be part of the Nyquist-Shannon theorem and basically be factually correct for the sample rate. And so re-rendering it at a different sample rate should technically and should produce another audio file that is appropriate. Now, where you might lose something is if you went in reverse, went from like 48K down to something like 32K, you will lose some of the highs there. But you're talking about going from 44.1 up to 48K. I don't see that as being any kind of an issue that you need to be worried about. Second part of the question here, not related to the above. What do you do when you first enter a new recording space? What do you listen for? What do you look for? How do you prepare for the session? Clap, whistle. This could be in a gig or when you are recording one of your videos. Episode 1 was great. Thanks, Gerg. Now, to answer that question here, what do I do when I go into a new recording space is I usually, based on experience, I can usually walk into a room and I can hear what I'm dealing with and observe. Like, I'll look for carpets, for example. If I'm on a film set, I'll look for carpets. I'll look for anything that is going to potentially reflect sound, because those are going to be all over the place. If it's a kitchen set, I know it's probably going to have linoleum on the floors. I know it's going to have probably a marble top and have wooden drawers and shelves and that kind of thing. So in those kind of circumstances, I may need to look at doing some sort of treatment on any wall that we're not seeing, but I don't always need to, because you still want it to sound like a kitchen would. And provided that the ceiling is open, which a lot of sets usually are this day and age, if that's the case, a lot of sound will escape that way and not even bounce back, and come right back onto set. If it is something that is a closed set, a small set, something like a bathroom set, or not even a set piece at all, if it's just a real location that we're shooting at, one of the tricks that I will usually do is I'll walk in there and I'll look for anything that is going to be an aid to us. Carpet's going to be a big thing, because I will put down our own 3x5 carpets on top of those, on top of a hardwood floor, if there is a need for it. If people are wearing, for example, high-heeled shoes, then I will definitely put those down in order to not hear the footsteps. If it's carpeted floor, no worries there. If there's tapestries on the wall because you're doing some sort of a medieval thing or you're shooting in a mansion, cool. Those are going to work to our advantage. If you're shooting in just a regular house, then you got to look at things like the furniture. Is it going to be leather, in which case it's not going to, help us at all? As a matter of fact, leather makes kind of a noise when you touch it, and it hits especially bare skin. It kind of makes what we refer to as kind of a farting noise. And if you get ahead of the game, sometimes the on-set dressers, what they can use is a special type of I forgot what it's called. Like, it's called a leather relaxer that you can put on the leather to make it less noisy. And in that circumstance, you should be able to put that down on that and then wipe it off and not get on the actor's wardrobe on the day. Now, if you get all the way on the day and then you realize that there's going to be loud noises coming from the furniture they're sitting on, one thing you can do is put down a towel if you're not seeing it, obviously. If you put down a towel over, and press it into the back and the front of the sofa, then it's going to get rid of a lot of that. Now, still, if they have a belt on, it could connect and make noise on the back of, the back of the sofa. But you're going to have that regardless, and most of the time you're not going to be able to really do anything about that. Don't worry about that. It's probably going to be a minor thing. But with regards to other things in there, I'll look for things that are going to be hindering our sound, like noisemakers. I'll be looking for things like thermostats and looking to see if they have a comfort system where there's a thermostat in every room, or if there is a central thermostat for all of upstairs and or downstairs. I'll look for things like home phones or anything that would make noise along those lines, because a home phone would need to be silenced. A refrigerator, you're probably not going to be able to shut down completely, because that's going to be something that would spoil all their food. But if there is something that I can't that we need to move, like something sensitive, there was a show that I did a couple of years ago, and they had breast milk in there, and they said we cannot kill the refrigerator. What we got permission to do is, I said, well, what we need to do is move this into our crafty trailer where they have good solid freezers there. They got permission from the homeowner. The homeowner said absolutely. They oversaw the process of loading it up into a cooler and transferring it into the craft services refrigerator unit so we could kill that refrigerator. And that was something we do last minute. We don't just turn it off and turn it back on between takes, because that's going to burn the thing out, just like it would in any like restaurant or something like that. You don't do their deep freezes and stuff that way. But then I'm kind of talking about being in a house, aren't I? Another thing that might be a hindrance to you in pretty much any kind of location is if you hear a beeping that's random. That could be because there is a fire alarm in the ceiling that the battery is going out on. You could say, I'm just going to pull the batteries, but then we carry a lot of good but not new batteries with us on our sound carts. Might as well just change it out if you're going up there anyway and help them out while you're there. That's one of those things that they might actually appreciate. As for other things, I will look and listen for anything that could potentially be an issue. If we're going to be dealing with a restaurant, for example, there could be extractor fans in the ceiling that come on when they turn on certain stovetops. In that circumstance, we have to work with props and make sure they know that they should not use those, or if they do, try to get their cooking done early. That way we can kill those off, and those overhead vents can be closed and not go back on when we're live. Sometimes props will be really helpful. They'll bring their own separate burners that barely make any smoke or anything, and they won't have to use the stovetops at the restaurant. But restaurants are another place where you could have a landline and might need to turn off the ringers on that, as opposed to places where we have cell phones and you have to actually silence those in a different manner, as I'm sure you're familiar with. Another thing that you might run into at a restaurant there is, do they have vending machines? Sometimes restaurants will have vending machines in the front, or they might have a certain refrigerator coolant type system where they would have a refrigerator that would carry things like wines that they constantly use and go through. And in that case, you might have them move the product off set and put it in the back. So that way, if they can kill most of the refrigeration units on set, move that product out of there so we don't have to worry about it anymore. That's the most ideal way to do it. You want to kill as many things as possible. So if they say, well, we have product in there and there and there, we have product all over the place, we can't kill these. Can we combine them? Can we combine them into one refrigeration unit in the back, leave that one on, and kill everything else? That should be something that they could do as a reality for you, provided that Locations has been on good rapport with them and they haven't been burned by another sound department that has forgot to plug in their deep freezes when they've said they wouldn't unplug them originally. Regarding anything else, you can probably block off the kitchen. For a lot of the times, the electricians will route in the big header cables and I totally just drew a blank there. They'll run in their 5/0 cable and things like that, and they're going to have to keep a door propped up. You might consider building a baffle on that if it's too noisy outside and the sound is coming in. You might also pick a door that you don't see and seal that one off and say, let's not go in and out of this door. Let's only come out this one door. With regards to anything that the audience will not see, like if there's food prep going on, sometimes they'll give the ADs will give somebody a knife and tell them to chop something up. If you don't see their hands, you just see someone back there prepping food, you don't need to hear noise out of them. They can pretend. They can take a soft cloth and gently wipe down stuff and clean. That would be much better anyway. The restaurant would probably appreciate that. But typically what I will do is I will use the noggin there. I'll listen to the environment. I will observe what I think it's going to sound like based on the soft materials they have, whether it's a sofa or a couch. If it's good, soft, cloth over top of foam, that's going to be great. Is there carpeted floors? Is there going to be noisemakers we need to control? Those kinds of things are going to be the things I normally shut down. As for things like claps and whistles, you're going to hear the crew go in there. I don't need to do any of that stuff because, I mean, I'll still sometimes do it if I just want to see how bad it is and then how much it's improved. But I don't normally do that because I'll hear the crew moving around in there and I'm naturally going to be able to determine whether or not it's going to be acoustically friendly or not. If it's not, then I will definitely want to take some Fernie pads, make and get a few stands from the grips and make some walls out of it and baffles, and I will spot treat that. And in those circumstances, I'm going to be listening for during rehearsals. I'll kick off the headphones. I'll listen to hear the troubled angles. And if we don't see those ways, then I will put the baffles up in those areas. But those are the kind of things that I'm going to be listening for when I first go into a new recording environment. And so there you go. That's your answer. Gerg also sent in a meme, which is overcompression. Is that a new Waves 8 plugin? Ha ha ha. I use Waves plugins. They're really good, but that is kind of funny. And I do enjoy memes, so if you want to send me any sound-related memes, by all means, send them in with your questions. Question number 2, Ken asks, hey Alan, as a boom op, do you ever want to hear different things in your personal IFB mix from the director's IFB mix? Do you want your boom to be pre or post fader? Does it change out when there's more than one boom working or on the same take? Oh, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. A lot of mixers will give you the choice of what you want to hear. Some mixers will just say, I want everybody to hear the same thing. We're all listening to the mix track. Personally, I don't like that because it annoys me if they're playing a lav and I don't hear my boom. So what I always ask for is I like to hear my boom pre-fader, and I like to hear every other track post-fader. The reason why is that way my boom is always something I can hear. And then I can always hear the lavs or something like that if the mixer is using them. That way, if the mixer is just playing my boom, that's all I hear. If the mixer is playing my boom and the boom of the sound utility or an additional second boom or something like that, I can hear that as well. What I don't like is when a mixer will play a couple of things at the same time and it starts phasing in my ear. So if I start hearing people play my boom and the lav, for example, or a plant, and they start phasing there, I know it's going to be phasing in the mix. So I will usually notice that, and I'll ask the mixer if they detected any of that, and they have said no in the past. And if that's the case, then I'm like, okay, well, I could be mistaken. It could be that my volume level is different than what they were playing it as. I don't know how loud they were playing my boom. All I know is that I heard my boom and I heard the lav of the person I'm booming at the same time. That doesn't normally need to happen under any circumstances as far as I'm concerned. Unless, of course, there's a noise issue or something where they would need to play the lav instead of my boom, in which case I could hear both. But if they're playing, if I'm solid on the person and I'm hearing the boom phase with the lav, I know they're playing the lav when they shouldn't. So I will usually address that kind of thing. But that is what my personal preference is. I like to hear my boom pre-fade, and I like to hear post-fade on everything else. And that would be second booms, plants, and what have you. Question number 3, Walter asks, I have a question for your support podcast. In your 32-bit float video, you showed a picture and put up words saying loud sounds can kill you. Is that true? Seems far-fetched. Thanks for doing this. Oh, this is a fun question. Yes, it is entirely true. How does it happen? Well, let's think about this. Sound is pressure through the air or through means like water or something like, a solid, right? Well, if sound pressure levels, SPL, if it increases and doubles, I should say, then you basically have an increase of 6 SPL. So if it goes from 80 dB to 86 dB, that's an increase in SPL and pressure of twice as much. So it's twice as much pressure. If you shoot a gun, it's really loud. That concussion breaks, the sound barrier in some circumstances, but regardless, it is extremely loud. And that crack that you hear is is basically ricocheted, and it sometimes has a kind of a hit your chest type feel to it, right? Anytime you hear a really loud smack, impact, and explosion, it sometimes gives you that impression, that gives you that feeling, right? That's because every time you double your SPL, then it increases by 6 dB. So it's not hard to imagine that when you start getting from a shotgun that's very, very loud, an AR-15, for example, as soon as you go up from that, which is about 167 dB, you double that. You're getting even more kick, and you're sitting at around 172 dB. Double that again. Now you're, now you're closer to around 180 dB. And at that point, you've doubled your pressure quite a bit more. At that point, you can not just damage your ears, which is what basically can happen, is you can start to disrupt things. For example, if someone has a pacemaker inside their chest, in their heart, it could potentially shake that, damage it in some sort of a way. Now, it's not to say that you have to have some sort of artificial body part in order to feel the impact from that and have it kill you. Not at all. But that is just one example of something that could happen. If you are using anything like your ears could even perforate if you're not using, sound protection, SPL headphones or anything like that. Your ears could be damaged by the pressure, and it doesn't even take 180 decibels. So if you were to continue to increase in 6 decibel increments and double the amount of pressure, then it does not take a full 5,000, which wouldn't actually happen. It does not need to take such a humongous boost in the SPL to actually cause damage, because by the time you get up in the 180s, a Halter, for example, is, I think, 187 decibels. That thing is a cannon. And if that shoots off, it's going to be like, boom, like this. A jet engine, for example, if that thing is really, really loud, it's going to most likely be higher frequencies. But you can imagine how loud that thing and how destructive that thing is. And if you can imagine a quick amount of pressure, especially on the low end pressures, not necessarily highs, because it doesn't take a whole lot of energy, let the truth be known, to get into the higher frequencies, even though that can damage you. Lower frequencies, though, a big solid punch at, let's say, 20 hertz, could be deadly at 180 dB. And by the time you get higher and higher and higher, oh yeah, that pressure could hit you and start causing a lot of problems for you, even killing you. So I think I read something online at one point that said that it said that if you could, it's been calculated, that's the word they used. And if your head could actually experience 240 decibels, it would cause your head to explode. Of course, that's all theoretical, because you really can't get higher than about 210 decibels, at least in air. So that would be an answer to your questions. Yes, indeed, you can experience death due to pressure, and pressure can occur from sound pressure levels. It's going to take quite a bit to kill you, so it's not something you need to worry about as part of your daily life and routine. Go to a concert, you're not going to die most likely from the noise there, because it's got to be, let's say a good 60 dB higher than that to enter that kind of deadly range. So now we've gotten to the end of this video, and I'm going to stress test the Halter technicals the way that a director or somebody might. Now, I will point out that me wearing those Halter technicals, I did notice, of course, the pressure from the cup being on top of my ear, pressing it into my glasses. I felt it on this side, not so much this side. I think that might be partially because on this side, since I never use, glasses that much at least, it may be because it's hooked into a different shape. And if I wore glasses constantly, most likely I would have to get this readjusted, because it drives me crazy. To wear for a couple of days, I'll deal with that, and I keep pushing it back. But regardless, I'm going to stress test these Halter technicals. Quite often, directors will do this number. They'll wear them, and they'll fall off of their sides. They'll maybe hit a table. They'll fall. They'll yank them around. Might be dragging them off of their sides. This kind of thing. So I'm bouncing this around quite a bit. I give you an idea of the kind of damage that a director may do to them. Now, as for the strain relief on the connector side, it is reinforced there. And I have actually done this earlier. Twist this thing all over the place and really torqued it and do this kind of thing. Let's do a little bit of pulling and stretching here. It's actually really probably one of the better made cables I've run into. If you look at it, it's pretty thin. Now, obviously, if I wanted to like this, like I did with the Bumblebee Sidekick, then it probably would tear. But it's actually resisting some pretty good torque. He wasn't kidding when he said they were made pretty well. So, okay, let's try a couple of these big ones. Okay, that's a pretty decent amount of destruction I've attempted to do to them. They've held up pretty well. So here's the moment of truth. I'm going to unplug the headphones I'm currently wearing, and I'm going to plug these in and see if I hear anything. Let's see. Moment of truth has arrived, and I hear everything perfectly. All right, and I'm twisting around the connector. Well, that's interesting. I've twisted around the connector now, and you remember how I said that it was a little bit staticky when I twisted around? That seems to have fixed the connector. So maybe, I don't know. That's really a weird thing, because doing that is what I did before, torquing this around, and it seems to have actually fixed the connector. That's interesting. It's not making any crinkling and popping noises anymore. So there you go. As for these, this is yanking them off of my head, and they're still working, aren't they? I'm going to take the headphones. I'm going to do a really quick pull on this and see what happens. So it's like if it were caught on something. Okay, one more time. Do they work? They still work great. Oh man, the Mix Pre 6 just went flying. Let me adjust that. I don't want that to happen. Let's not do that. That's the sound I've been recording for this entire episode. So I'm going to actually pin this down right here, and I'm going to yank this off of my head and toss it. Okay. And they still work great. So that's actually me yelling. Okay. I stress tested it, and I did not tell Halter Technical I was going to do that. And I'll tell you, oh man, here I am trying to do this again. Good job, Halter Technical. You see, I'm actually starting to sweat a little bit from all of this abuse to it. So I'll say you did a good job on stress testing this for directors. Scene monitors broke relatively easily, and I'm sure Halter Technical wasn't very happy about me, grabbing it and twisting it and yanking it. But these, they must be reinforced or something in there, because they're doing really well. I mean, look at me. I'm starting to sweat now. Well done. Doc, you developed a good headphone here, man. They're pretty rugged. They're definitely going to survive set life. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do one more thing. Okay. Not going to be easy on them at all. And I twisted this all the way around. I can't even put them on my head anymore. What did I do to this? I twisted this thing around this way a couple of times. And how in the world did I... Oh, I went around the cup. Okay. There we go. Do they still work? They still work. So if I brought this over here, both ears work. Cool. So I did not destroy the Mix Pre 6. I've added a couple of... From pulling it here, I've added a couple of little extra loops in this. But I tell you, it's not making any noise over there going into the Sound Devices Mix Pre 6 headphone jack anymore. When I wiggle it back and forth, it's making no crinkling. So I'm basically doing this number, and I'm twisting it this way. Absolutely nothing. So I'll say that these are definitely pretty good with regard to build quality. Where is it? I'm not wearing the glasses anymore, so I can't even see the thing. Yay, nearsighted people. Oh, there it is. I found it. Cool. And I don't want to put these back on right now. But I will say this. They do sound a little on the thin side. They don't sound like the ATH M50X headphones do, but then do you expect them to? These things are a sixth the price, and they're not designed for that. They are thinner. They are on ear. I don't know if you can hear any bit coming back from this and it's causing any kind of feedback, but then probably not, because, how likely is it going to happen? But, and by that, I mean, how likely is it going to be that a director is going to be standing right there on set next to someone with headphones like this? And here I am. I just put the headphones directly towards the microphone, and they don't hiss or make any kind of squealing noises. But then I don't wear my headphones up overly loud. So build quality and everything, I'd give 2 thumbs up to the Halter Technical Elite monitors. That's really cool, actually. I'm very impressed with the way they dealt with my abuse and my resilience here. You win this round. So thank you for tuning into this episode of the Sound Support Podcast. This is episode 2. And I will, as soon as I get 3 more questions, I will put together another episode of this support podcast, unless I have any kind of other announcements I need to make. Remember, if you'd like to sign up for and make a donation to the charity live testing of the EINs of 4 pieces of audio gear, then we will do that as a live stream just for those people. If you would like to enroll in the sound utility class, which is going to be on September 12th, then you will have that option as well. And that's going to be from 2 until 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with a question and answer session afterwards. That is $50. Once again, there's going to be information in the description below regarding any of this stuff. And of course, if you're interested in having me personally make you an XLR cable, you have that as an option as well. All of this information is in the description below, so check that out if you're anywhere near interested. Thank you very much for watching and tuning in. Ask a question if you would like to be answered as part of the support podcast at ssp@soundspeeds.us. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
If you'd like to ask a sound-related question to be answered in a future episode, send text, audio, or video to ssp@soundspeeds.us. Want to record this outro? Fine! Take my job from me. Details in the description down below. Find us on social media and online at www.soundspeeds.us. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for more sound-related content.